Welcome to another Davinci Resolve tips and tricks. Today we're going to be looking at groups. So as you can see here on the edit timeline, I have 2 or 3 shots of different projects. Kitchen studio, white cyc, sunset. This is the Alexa 35. Another Sony. I think they're all Sony. They're all going to be S-Log 3 Cine. And this one is actually the new Log C4 from Arri. So let's jump into the color page. What I want to do with all these shots from different projects, this was a film. Just think this as a scene, this as another scene, this as another longer scene, this as another scene, etc., etc. If you don't work as much as on films, let's think about a documentary, like not only different scenes, but only maybe different cameras. So you can group different cameras. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start grouping shots, and I'm going to show you how to create a group. For you can, by any means, you can do it here on the color page, clips. You select the amount, let's say, this long scene up to here. You select all the clips, you right click, you come to add into new group if you're creating a group from the scratch, or add into a current group if you already have a group and you want to add more clips into a group. Now this is a quick way of doing it. The way that I do it is to come here to Lightbox, where you see all your clips. If you don't want any of this information here, you can click in the eye here, and it's much better for visualizing all your shots and scenes in your film. So I'm gonna select these two, then add into new group. I'm gonna call this group kitchen. And you can see how these groups are going to be appearing here. If you click in kitchen, only the 2 shots that I grouped into kitchen will appear. Same here when you come to the grading page. So let me do them all. So you can see I'm going to add white cyc, this longer one from here to here, add into new group. Let's call this sunset. Yeah, you can see all the groups here and all your scenes already grouped. So we can come out of Lightbox. You can see that I left it selected, but you can come here to clips and you have all your groups here, and obviously all clips and all the groups will appear here. So when you click on any shot down here, you will see by this link in green which shots are part of this group. It doesn't have to be consecutive in this case, because I'm thinking this as different scenes in a film, but I could group, like as I said, by camera. So camera A that shoots here, and then it appears here down the line. So when I click here, this will be highlighted, and wherever the other shot would be. So I'm going to show you I'm going to show you why I group them this way and how I used it. But let me quickly ungroup this, or just remove this clip from group. This is still in the group. You can see that when I have this selected, you have the usual 2 dots here, which are actually clip and timeline, only 2. We've discussed in other videos that I use timeline for look development, and then I grade clip by clip, to correct them individually. So if I'm into here and I'm sort of part of this group at the moment, I can add into current group, and it's back in the group. As I start grouping things, you can see that now we have 4 dots here. So we have the usual clip and timeline at the end, but we have another 2. We have a group pre-clip at the very start, and down here in the middle, the third one, group post-clip. I'm gonna quickly exemplify so it makes sense. I'm gonna come to my gallery, and I have a lot of power grades that are created that I'm gonna share soon with you. I'm gonna do a specific video about power grades. I know this video has been shot with a Sony FX6, so I'm gonna add this utility converter from S from S-Log3 Cine to Davinci White Gamut, as I usually do. And you can see that, so this is the initial null graph of a group. So whatever I do here, it will be affected to the whole group. I'm coming to a new group and then it's empty. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll do, this was FX6 as well. This is an FX3 or FX6, can't remember, but S-Log3. This is actually log C4, Alexa35. This was A7S3, and this was A7S3. So just Sony's and Alexa35. But you can see that, you know, if you have multiple cameras, then each input of each group could be different. In this case, yeah, White Gamut 4 and log C4, etc. Then if we jump to the last one, so the last one, timeline, is exactly the same as your usual clip and timeline. This will affect to every single group. Every single shot in your timeline will be affected at this point. So as I want to add like as an overall look that ties in every single scene together, I'm gonna again come to my gallery, come to Node Trees, timeline, and add this one, for instance. It's got a few little things here, but basically, even if I disable this, we got a 2383 film emulation, color and contrast, and our conversion from Davinci White Gamut to Rec 709. If you are wondering why do I have this, is because I don't tend to color manage here. I tend to color manage in the node graph. So in this case that I work with, this is an example, but if you work with multiple cameras, this is where it's good to have all these grouped, so you have the ability to have different inputs. Let's keep it simple. So in this case, it's a regular S-Log3 to Davinci White Gamut and an ARRI log C4 to Davinci White Gamut, and our output is Davinci White Gamut to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. So you can see that it doesn't matter which group I click, the timeline never changes. So far, recap: input, what we call group pre-clip, and an overall output, my look dev, which will affect every single group. Now, the clip, as you are used to, I'm gonna use this node tree. This is a base node tree that I can basically apply to, yes, to every clip. So at the clip level, every single clip will have my base node tree. So then, for instance, let's work on the exposure and balance, something very quick that I'm gonna do. But also some other people at this stage, and I sometimes do it, we add filtration. So if I come to get my gallery, I've got already a black mist node that I created. So you can see maybe it's over the top, and you can tailor it. It's quite heavy. So we can compound this node and we can half it. And if we come closer to her, especially looking at her skin tones and highlights, yeah, I mean, it's working really nicely. It's making the image nice, soft, and getting rid of that digital harshness. I like what it's doing. So yeah, let's call this promised. So I'm adding a bit of filtration to this scene. So on and so forth. You know, you see what you can do at the very start of one group. Sometimes I do add the halation after filtration. This is terribly too much. You know, you can just change this. You know, the saturation is a bit too much. But anyway, just as an example, you know, and call this halation, so you know what you're doing. So we have the input of the camera. Let's think of this as a filter in front of your lens, and then the halation that the sensor produces, and then straight into the correction of how the camera exposed, capture the colors, etc. I'm gonna delete this because it's confusing, the small filtration at the end that I actually don't need it there. And then jump into the actual look of the film. But let's talk about this one here, which is the group post clip. Yeah. So this, let's say, I ramble a lot, but so first one is to convert the camera into a color space and then add things that are going to be applied, say, as a filter or halation to the initial part of the process of a group. So this is here, but in the next group, I don't have any of that. Then at a clip level, I copied my base node tree to every single clip. So, and I started very quickly correcting exposure and balance for every single clip. Despite the node, despite the groups, every single clip is individual. Yeah, so let's exaggerate that so you can see here. So I'm only changing that clip within the group, but only this clip. Timeline is the overall to every single clip in your timeline, and this is specific at the end of your, say, correction, if you will, that will only be applied to the group. So the way I sometimes use it, it's good to have it separate as well. But for instance, let's grab this clip. I really like how this is looking, but why don't we make her jacket a bit more teal? So rather than coming here, let's use 12. I'm just sampling here and just move them a little bit there. Just a quick example. So rather than doing that, and then come here and copy every single effect one by one, what I could do is, knowing that whatever I do here will affect the whole group, is I'll paste it here. So this will affect this, every single clip in the group. So that's how I use mostly the post clip group, just to change something to that whole scene. Say for instance, I did correction, but not. The client comes and says, wow, why don't we, again, I like the whole scene. In this case, 2 clips, but let's pretend there's 100 clips. And you don't want to go back into one by one, touching something that's an overall retouch. Obviously, if you add it at a timeline level, it's not only in this scene, it will be applied to the whole film. So this is your, let's call it your timeline of the group, the timeline of each group. And then comes the producer and says, "Oh, I hate greens. Why don't we make the greens more, a bit deeper and less saturated, although they're not saturated?" And then I select, I'll do something like that, and these will translate to here as well. And that's same. This is so fun. I want to do this forever. So let's say I select this whole column. Well, I want to shift the hue like this. So bring those greens a bit more to the orange bit, to the orange side, So you can see here how the greens are becoming more like a drier, right? So this is nice and well watered grass, and this more arid and dry. So I'll ramble on. So I hope let me quickly recap for the 5th time, I think already. Pre-clip group is the very first node of each group. So I usually personally use it for camera conversion, to convert the footage to move it into certain color space. And then sometimes, like I said, I use it would go just before the light hits the sensor. filtration, and well, even halation. The light is hitting the sensor and bouncing back. So halation. Then clip is where I do my color correction. Post clip is where I modify something specific of the whole group. In this example, what did I correct? The cushions. In the clip level, this is the overall look, where I create the look development, if you will, that will affect the whole film, every single scene, every single shot in the same way. So hope you enjoyed it, hope you got something positive, and go ahead and create many lovely groups and play with it and just experiment. Yeah, until next time, bye.